Welcome back, everyone, to the Burnout Club. This is a place where we explore burnout and success one expert and experiment at a time. I'm your host, Patrice Bonfilio, and today I am joined by Dr. Alexis Kennedy. Dr. Kennedy, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is my favorite topic to talk about these days.
Yes. So, Dr. Kennedy is CEO of Compassion Recharge, and I found her and asked her to be on this podcast because she had content that was so practical and easy to implement, and people just need solutions, right? That's the whole reason why I started this podcast because I need some tips on how I can make my life work and stay active in my business and not feel burnout. So, I would love for you to give us a little bit about your story and how you got into this field of sharing your expertise with the world.
Well, I have been working in the field of human trafficking for 35 years now. I interviewed my first victim 35 years ago.
Mm.
And at about year 25, I just got my nervous system got overwhelmed with all of the important stories I'd been telling about people being in some of the worst circumstances. And
Mhm.
I thought if I'm going to keep going, I have to figure out how to find a bit of balance in my life and to figure out how to interrupt my stress response because important work comes with a burden, and
Yeah.
I was always very bad at taking care of myself because there was always so much urgency for the victims that I was working with, and it was
Mhm.
like, my life is so easy compared to theirs. What am I what am I doing? Why am I feeling badly for myself? But I
Yeah.
dove into the neuroscience, and we should just be teaching everybody everywhere that we have our modern society is a burden on us, and it's fraying our
Mhm.
nervous systems, and it's interfering with how we sort of cope day to day.
That resonates a lot. I know people who are doing important work like you are, and you are not alone in how intense it is being the person that is trying to provide assistance or care or anything. So, how long did it take you when you started that journey of let me research the neuroscience versus feeling like you had a handle on something that could actually help you during that process?
It was funny because 'cause I'm a recovering attorney as well, so being
Yeah.
an academic and an attorney, I'm like, "I'll use my brain, I can think my way out of this," and
Yeah.
I have really not listened to my body and the signals in
Mm.
my body because nobody wants to feel like they're broken, but
Mhm.
if our nervous system is overwhelmed, we can't think straight, we have mental fog, we're not sleeping well, and it just adds and adds and adds and adds. So, I mean, I was really inspired by the victims I worked with because they have amazing resiliency. The fact that
Mm.
they get up every day and keep going despite the trauma they've been through. So I thought
Yeah.
I need to figure out more about what this resiliency is and
Mhm.
really learning more about that because I see in victims in particular, they have very sensitive nervous systems from all the trauma they've been through.
Mhm.
So the tactics, the strategies that work best with veterans, with first responders, with victims of violence, they work for everyone. So I
Mm.
really just wanted to share it as much as I could.
So, why don't you share with the listeners what it means to actually listen to your body? You mentioned that there were signs and signals and that you ignore it just like I think all of us do because we don't necessarily prioritize ourselves. So what's something we should be looking for or listening to?
Well, I like to think of us a bit as springs, and the more weight we have on us, the more compacted the spring is, and the less bounce we have for, all the little speed bumps that are going to come in life. So, for some people, the fact that they are just overwhelmed and not getting out of their fight or flight comes in terms of physical signs. So,
Mhm.
teeth grinding, elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, not being able to relax, not being able to stop, sort of go, go, go. For other people, it's more the the way they're interacting with the world. If you're the kind of person that you get in a 15-item checkout and the person in front of you has 20 items and all of a sudden you're, like, ready to absolutely lose it, that's a sign that you've lost your balance. If your commute to work involves
Uh,
you screaming at people,
mhm.
that's another behavioral sign that you might be out of balance. But it's also
Mhm.
our emotions, and when you start to feel differently about the people around you, if you start to feel differently about the clients that you're working with,
Mhm.
those are also signs that your body just isn't having enough time to recharge and recover.
Mm. I think the example of just like the intolerance or impatience in everyday activities. Because I am a pretty mild person, but sometimes I do feel like, "Oh my goodness, why is this taking so long on the inside?" And then I have to remind myself, like, this is actual normal activity, and it's fine that it's taking more than, 60 seconds to happen. So let's say I'm in that situation and I'm in line at the bank. What should I be telling myself other than I can't stand this bank, I'm gonna switch?
The I
You know?
mean, the first thing you can do is you feel your heart rate go up and your breathing gets shallower and you're just becoming really agitated.
Mhm,
You can say, "Thank you, body. That's an interesting message. Is this really life or death? Yes, it's kind of annoying to have to wait, but I
mhm,
think my reaction might be a little bit not my normal reaction or a little bit exaggerated." So then once you notice that you're in fight or flight, then you can sort of say, "All right, yeah, I'm going to be stuck here for a few minutes waiting in line. Let me
mhm,
do some breathing exercises. Let me change my breathing and go in for
mhm,
4, do box breathing, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4." Or you could do something like ground yourself, look around the bank, look at all 4 corners, come up with a color blue, see how many things you can spot with the color blue.
mm,
Anything to engage your brain in a way that sends the message to your nervous system that you're not actually in danger, that you're actually
mm,
safe in this moment, even though you have to wait. If you
yeah,
turn it into sort of a fun mental exercise that sends that contrary information to your brain that you're safe, there's the thing about burnout and interrupting stress, these techniques seem really basic because they are. And we've
mhm,
known about them for thousands of years. I mean,
yeah,
meditation, breathing, mindfulness, it's part of Eastern medicine. We just need to pull it into Western medicine because our neuroscience now shows that interrupts the stress response, which interrupts the
mhm.
release of our stress hormones, which allows our brain to come back online and think clearly again.
Yes, okay, and I think it's fantastic because it's so doable, right?
Mhm.
I say, "Thank you, body, for sending me a signal." Yes. And for me, I would probably go to the game versus the box breathing, although I do box breathing sometimes, but, I like it when I learn strategies that can be the same for me and also my kids.
Yep.
So, like, giving them the phrase, "Thank you, body, for sending me this signal." We may have to start there. Um, yeah. What is your favorite thing, concept, or technique to teach people?
Really, I love teaching people the science of why we need to listen to our bodies and interrupt the stress response. And the psychology I learned 30 years ago in grad school, it's completely changed. We've learned so much about
Mhm,
neuroscience in the brain, and being able to show people like screens of where the blood is going in your brain to me is fascinating and sort of saying, look, this is your body being adaptive in case you really did have to run from a lion,
mhm.
that all of a sudden came down to the watering hole. But we don't actually have real lions in our life anymore. We have politics and news and social
Yeah.
media, but it's invoking that same stress response. So one of
Mhm,
the fascinating things is that when we're in fight or flight, when we're in that ready to run mode, our brain actually moves the blood from the outside of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is our CEO or executive thinking, to the
mhm,
more inside parts of the brain that operate our reactions. So we can't think clearly when we're stressed because the blood is actually moved from one part of the brain to another part. So if you're constantly stressed, you're just not gonna be your best self. If you're frustrated that you're making mistakes or not thinking clearly, that's your body getting you ready
mhm.
to run. So we have to send those contrary signals to our body and say, "It's okay. We're safe. We're not actually needing to fight
Yeah,
right now, and
yeah.
we need to go back online."
Is there, a lasting impact? So let's say someone's been in fight or flight for the majority of the past year, right? Or even longer. If you start implementing some changes to interrupt that process, can you actually get back to what your normal state was, or are you just kind of stuck?
No, no, never stuck, and the thing is that often when we're sort of overwhelmed, a lot of us like to keep busy and add more to our plate to sort of push through,
Mhm.
and It's exciting to burn the candle at both ends, but if you do, you just burn up the wax twice as fast. So if we don't slow down and build in some self-care time or some time to reverse burnout, we're
Mhm.
borrowing from our retirement. And
Mhm.
we've all heard the stories, a lot of the compassion fatigue research came out of nursing actually, and it was,
Mm.
you know, amazing nurses who would leave it all at work, get home, collapse on the couch, and, like, 48 hours, get up and go back to work because they had
Yeah.
nothing left. They'd left it all at work, and they sorta said, "You
Yeah.
know what? This isn't enough. This isn't great quality of life."
Mhm.
And when they shared it with doctors, doctors were very resistant, kind of like, "Well, this is the way it's always been, and this is how it's gonna be." But then you hear the stories about doctors retiring and a month later dropping dead of a heart attack
Yeah.
because if you push your system, if you're constantly have that pedal to the floor with your adrenal glands going and all your stress neurotransmitters, you're just burning through your resources and you're gonna borrow it at the end. And
Mhm.
that's what's so amazing from the research that's coming out of the child abuse trafficking area is that it shows that being in chronic stress actually prematurely ages you. So at the telomere level, we can see the damage that is done when we're constantly in fight or flight.
When people talk about longevity, that's what they're talking about, right? Like,
Yeah,
looking at
my
that.
My biotech son explained it to me. He said telomeres are sort of they're the ends of our DNA, RNA strands, and it's
Mhm.
like as you age, it's like a photocopier. The more
Yeah.
copies you make, the fuzzier it gets. So we can actually look into the human body and see what age our telomeres are essentially, and if they're too frayed and too fuzzy, the
Mm.
copies, that means we're aging more.
Wow. Yeah. It's, it's really scary when you get outside of your autopilot self and you start looking from the outside, like, what are you doing to your body and your mind?
Yeah,
Uh, so how about a scenario where someone recognizes that they need to rest or take a break, and then they do that, let's say, they have some time to themselves on the couch, but they're still worrying about things, like, is
yeah.
that just, like, a moot session at that point?
Well, we have good coping strategies and bad coping strategies. And some
Mm,
people feel like if they physically stop moving and they're sitting on the couch watching the news, that they're relaxing. But actually, their brain is taking in that information, and the fight or flight response is generally triggered by what's in the news because it's, difficult times.
yeah.
And that is completely different than if you go for a walk outside for the
Mhm,
same hour. And that gives your brain time to get out of being that super attentive and worrying about danger, and instead you can just sort of go change your attention to allow your brain to sort of catch up with all the busyness. And social media scrolling is one of the trickiest because it feels good when we get that dopamine boost from what's happening and what we see, the intermittent reward that we have in dopamine boosts. But it actually is adding to our stress level because we're taking in information that is not necessarily calming us down.
is it accurate that if you are looking at social media, like, let's say, in the beginning of the day, that the early kind of surges of dopamine are almost robbing you from having, like, your actual experiences later? Can you talk about that from, like, like, Dr. Kennedy's perspective versus mine?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that as soon as you wake up, your brain is sort of supposed to be noticing and waking up gradually. If you go straight to your phone and look at emails and get that sort of rush of, I've got to respond. I can't believe that happened. Oh my God, what is this now? You've just started your day before you've even had breakfast with a wash of stress hormones. And that puts you on alert and keeps you on alert for the rest of the day. So, one of the best things that people recommend is to just simply before you even get out of bed, imagine things going well. Just picture your day going peacefully, thinking about things that are going to happen, visualizing it going the right way. Even if your day
Mhm.
never turns out that way, just starting
Yeah.
with that moment of visualization tells your brain what to pay attention to, and it'll pay attention to successes if you start your day thinking about successes. But if
Mhm.
you're feeding it this diet of worry and stress, that's what you've told your brain, this is what we need to look out for the rest of the day.
That's very powerful. Um, I I think that in terms of, like, would I actually do it or not, I think can implement that pretty quickly just because like I find with journaling and kind of written setting my intentions, I don't do that with any consistency. I write notes to get if I have something I want to do or an idea, like I get that out. I leave a notepad by my bed, but I can certainly visualize successes during the day. That's something I can do. So, all you listeners, definitely start that. what what was the biggest change for you? Like what had the biggest impact in a positive way that you started doing?
For me, it was getting the chance to share it with other people, 'cause
Mm,
I'm like you, I can read, "Alright, I need a gratitude journal," I buy it, and then I use it once.
yeah.
So, actually being out and explaining the science of why it works to
Mhm.
people and them going, "Oh, I did this and this helped me," it really reinforces the fact that we're all on this journey, and there's no
Mhm.
one tool that's perfect, and you look at the people who live life well and don't get stressed, and you see how they almost they get home and they don't take their work home with them. They're able to set boundaries and do those things that bring them peace, like knitting or gardening or hobbies that most of us, we have to give up. We're way too busy, but
Yeah.
they have that ability to unplug from what
Mhm.
they're worrying about and what they're thinking about, and seeing that makes me want to also find my way to get to that model as well, and
Mhm.
it's constant failure, but there is no such thing as failure because every little moment that you take a win, that you do something that takes care of yourself, you're just taking your foot off that stress gas pedal, and it allows your body to heal and your brain to clear and your breathing to, get a little bit deeper. So there's
Mhm.
no way to do it wrong, and
Mm.
try everything. Some people it's being outdoors, some people it's hobbies, some people it's meditation, some people it's exercise. There's a million ways to try it, so just keep trying one to find the ones that are easiest for you to stick with.
Yeah. Oh, so many good things you just said there. One, just reminding everyone to give themselves grace, right? There's no wrong way to do it. That's always very freeing. So thank you for that announcement. And then the other one is, I think maybe similar to you, found better results by talking about it. I was always very shy and private and would be the last person you think would have a podcast, but somehow like this has been a very important part of my journey. And now that I'm, a student of burnout, I'm just asking questions and really enjoying that and getting so much, even if the advice maybe doesn't necessarily fit for me, it's still helpful to be in that environment and in that conversation. Um, it's yeah, that's so helpful. And what was it like the transition to talking publicly? I'm just interested to hear, because like a lot of people are sort of like in that journey. Do I actually want to be a thought leader? Do I actually want to be public about what I'm speaking? So what was it like for you?
I guess I'm always been lucky because I feel like the message has pushed me through talking about things people don't actually wanna talk about. I mean,
Hmm.
when I started in the field of human trafficking, it was simply prostitution. We didn't even call it human trafficking, and
Mm,
people I got the hand, I'm like, "I don't wanna talk about that, that's depressing." Whereas I'm like,
yeah.
"No, no, we need to talk about this issue." So now with
Hmm.
burnout, I got, one of the major events that we had in, the Las Vegas was the mass shooting, and I was
Oh
part of
yeah.
the mental health community, so my job was to go to the firehouses, the first firefighters that were on the scene after that
Mm,
shooting, and I mean, walking into the firehouse with their arms crossed going, "I'm not gonna talk about my feelings." I
yeah.
had to really figure out how do I explain to them that this isn't mental health, they're not broken, it's not,
Yeah.
touchy-feely, they don't have to share anything personal, but let me talk to you about physical performance and how
Mhm.
being in constant stress is gonna take a toll on your body, and then once they sort of got that I could reframe it as peak performance instead of mental
Mm,
health, then the conversation started, and then they really got excited about just improving their lives by
mhm.
building in more fun time, cutting loose things that are too stressful or too difficult. It shouldn't be a burden, it should be a journey and a joy. And so, yeah, I just realized people don't wanna think they're broken. They want
Yes.
really simple strategies to improve their lives. But the reality is we're all pretty stressed right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's undeniable. This podcast would not exist if we were not all stressed. So it's great to have a different lens too. I see what you're saying, where if you just frame it or kind of label it as peak performance versus like mental health, a conversation about peak performance, conversation about mental health, there's a totally different reaction. I don't know if it's just firefighters. I think people probably have a different reaction. So we should all maybe have that conversations with ourselves. Like, what would I be willing to do to work on if it was labeled peak performance? Probably
Or
more. Yeah.
or even how do I enjoy my life? Because a lot of people who are burned out, they'll be go, 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 and then they get on
Hmm.
vacation and then they're sick and they spend the rest of their vacation
Yeah.
in bed and not getting to enjoy the trip they'd spend months planning.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for me, it's like I want to enjoy my off time and I want to enjoy my vacation time. And it's okay to
Hmm.
work hard and do difficult work, but I'm going to live my healthiest life and have a good retirement by
Hmm.
making sure that I take that foot off the gas pedal during,
Hmm.
the regular work year. And it's it's nearly it's not something we're taught that there is no reward for missing all your vacation days. There is no
Yeah.
merit badge for, working long hours and taking your work home with you all the time.
Hmm.
It's good to do important work, but if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others.
That's true. It's the whole like airplane mask thing. That
Yeah.
that concept. Take care of yourself. I just thinking back to what you're saying about the blood going away from where you actually need that executive functioning.
Yep.
It's, it's so primal what's actually happening, and we have the ability to fix it. So we can add in little things every day. And I like the idea of enjoying your life too, or and even your vacation. And I always ask people, like, what do you feel is something very fun for you? Like when you want to enjoy yourself, what are you doing?
I love to travel, but what's interesting with the science behind it is the planning of travel, the anticipation of travel. You
Mhm.
get just as much positive neurotransmitters from that as actually being on vacation. So I
Really?
really, yeah, because it's that I'm dreaming where I'm going to go. I'm thinking about what restaurants I'll go to. I'm,
Mhm.
planning just different excursions. So I like to, when I'm planning a big trip, if I'm, planning it with someone else, I took my sister away for her birthday once. And I mean, for like 3 months beforehand, once a day, I'm like sending her a picture and we'll be here and this is where we're headed. And we actually got more positive anticipation sort of
Yeah.
juice than the actual trip. I mean, the trip was fun, but
Yeah.
anytime you're thinking about doing something fun or anticipating making plans, that actually gives you a break from the stress and a boost of the positive neurotransmitters.
Oh, that makes me very happy. I love that you said that because I'm a planner, and I think it also ties in with general optimism. I don't know if you agree with this or not, but if you are finding things to look forward to during the day and like maybe not a trip, maybe it's just having your favorite meal at dinner, or maybe it's instead of being consumed by what is on the news, thinking about something positive with innovation for the future, of the global community. Like, would that be the same or have similar effects? Or is it just that vacations are so special?
No, we're just wired to notice danger. So we are
Hmm.
drawn, our attention is drawn to fiery headlines and dramatic
Hmm.
life or death situations, which may actually not be impacting us. So
Hmm.
we have to retrain our brains to focus on the positive, to notice the good things. And, it takes practice. It takes just a sort of awareness that I mean, even little things like compliments and insults. They always say that compliments are Teflon and insults are Velcro. And, as a university professor, I could have 99 good reviews on my class and one person say she should have brought cookies. And all I'm thinking about is, oh my God, no one told me I should bring cookies. Like you're focused on the negative and you're
Yeah.
dismissing the positive. But the
Hmm.
positive is just as valid. But that's how our brain was trained just evolutionarily to look for dangers. So
Mhm.
when there's so much negative around, we have to sort of purposely seek out the positive, and
Mhm.
that's something that, I mean, they've known for thousands of years. That's what meditation is to be able to sit
Mm.
there and see your negative thoughts and go, just release it, say, "That's a curious thought," and let it watch by, and to
Yeah.
try and be present, to try and focus on your meal, to try and think about, where you're at in the moment instead of reliving what happened in the past or worrying about what's happening in the future. So
Mhm.
we know how to change our state, we're just not really taught that, or the reason why having that break of mindfulness just allows your whole body to calm down.
Mm. No, that makes a ton of sense. Was there anything that surprised you as you began your research on the neuroscience and what to do and why that you could share with us?
I think the fact that people have known what to do for thousands of years, it's like, "Wait, why was this not part of my psychology degree, or why was this
Yeah.
not taught to me along the way?" And, I mean, part of it is, for example, yoga, which is an amazing practice. It it is something that we have sort of in the Western world turned into an exercise regime or something, and it wasn't actually safe for victims of violence. Being somewhere
Mhm.
where you're sitting there and you have a lot of sort of thoughts that are coming up and someone comes up and touches your body unexpectedly, it can trigger
Mhm.
trauma. So
Mm.
understanding that yoga, you can have trauma informed yoga where people aren't actually adjusting you or touching you, or knowing that, yoga could just simply be sitting on the mat and breathing for 45 minutes. And that is actually
Mm.
going to restore your nervous system. You don't have to be turning yourself into pretzels. Any time that you have put away your phone, put away conversation, or focused on how your body feels or thinking about your breathing actually resets your nervous system. So, again, I love to say there's no wrong way to do it. And,
Yeah.
meditation is not a blank mind. It's just simply
Mhm.
shutting off all these other conversations and information so that you can sort of objectively watch the thoughts float by. Because when you're trying to like stuff all the worries and thoughts away and tuck it in a box, it's like battling to get out. If you just simply sit there and say, okay, I'm safe in this moment, I'm going to see and let my thoughts go. Once you've let that thought sort of go and you're not trying to suppress it anymore, it
Mhm.
loses its power. And then you can move
Mm.
on to other things.
That's something we should all practice, right? Like, so, like letting the thoughts pass through.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big difference that a lot of people do think I need to have zero thoughts or a blank mind. And it's like, I just don't know if that's even achievable. But I,
No. I mean, maybe some people get there,
yeah,
but it takes years, I think.
yeah, right. If you're listening to this podcast, probably you're probably not there, but you may be on your way, but you might not be there. Um, Now, when I know you do a lot of speaking. What audiences are you talking to these days? Because you have so much expertise in different areas. Do you find that certain groups or sectors are requesting these conversations? And are there some groups that really need it that don't have it yet?
I think there's a lot of groups who need it. Interestingly,
Mhm.
I'm working a lot with lawyers, and
Yeah.
nothing in law school is taught about, how to manage a busy caseload, and they think that they can think their way out of absolutely everything.
Mm.
And realizing that, there's going to be a cost at the end. Part of the reason I left law is I had that stereotypical thing where I was a little junior lawyer and we came in on a Monday morning and one of the partners had died at his desk over the weekend.
Oh my
I
goodness.
remember thinking, "Oh, I don't want to die in this office," which is part of why I went into psychology instead. But
Yeah.
any professional group, understanding that the hustle culture comes at a cost is a
Mhm.
really simple and really important message. And the trouble is, a lot of people who need this message would never sign up for like a webinar on mental health. They'd be like, oh, no, no, I don't have time for that. So I've been
Yeah.
doing CLEs, continuing legal education. And
Mhm.
often the lawyers are kind of like, I didn't know I needed this talk, but it was so interesting. So,
Yes.
but really, any professional group leadership, it's just a really important message to have
Mhm.
across our different sort of busy hustle cultures, business cultures that we have.
Yeah. Now, if you could change anything about either how certain industries are working or our general culture? Like, what what would you want to see?
I think that we need to not pathologize the people who are struggling. I think that we underestimate how much we're all struggling. And often
Mhm.
when people are in a toxic workforce or they've got really difficult jobs, when you see someone around you starting to implode or spin out, your first thought is, "Oh my god, I have already so much to do. I do not want to be your caretaker or helping
Mhm.
you." But the reality is if we don't notice the warning signs in our colleagues and sort of give them a little gentle reminder or say that we could connect and listen to them,
Mhm.
they're gonna implode, and that's gonna add to our workload. So it we're all so busy but
Yeah.
helping your colleagues makes your job better. And
Mhm.
that's a message that has to come top down, but also through education
Yeah.
allows people to sort of say, "Okay, I'm gonna help them today, but they'll be here to help me tomorrow."
Yeah, I think you're touching on an element of just overall community. Like if
Mhm.
we're having these conversations and destigmatizing it a little bit and just acknowledging like, yes, I might be the one next week or next month or, in the next hour who might need a little nudge for, reframing my current situation. That's certainly better. What should people say? Let's say you have a coworker that might be imploding or there's some signs and maybe you're not best friends, right? Let's
Yeah.
just assume you're a good coworker, no issues whatsoever. What can you say?
I mean, the first thing is making that human connection and saying, "Boy, you seem like you have a lot on your plate. Is there, and maybe not, is there anything I can help with?" Like, you don't necessarily want to step in that way, but, tell me
Mhm.
what's going on. And
Mhm.
if they do seem overwhelmed, saying, "Have you thought about talking to the supervisor? Or have you thought about, taking a day off and coming back tomorrow?" There's
Mhm.
a law of diminishing returns where, as the more you spin out, the less efficient you become. So
Yeah.
sometimes encouraging people to say, "You know what? It's 3 o'clock. Why don't you sneak out now? This will all be here tomorrow." And
Mhm.
giving them that permission to take a break helps them sort of reframe as well. And it is engaging, if you're not comfortable with the person who seems to be struggling, talking to supervisors, talking to people who are in a position to provide resources or to, help them figure out what's going on. But just simply keeping your head down and sort of saying, "Ah, that person's going to implode." I mean,
Yeah.
we sort of we also wanna do it in a positive way because we tend to get sucked into complaining and whining and,
Mhm.
commiserating, but doing that just makes us feel worse. So,
Yeah.
being able when someone comes up to complain, being able to say, "I just don't have the bandwidth for this today, do you mind if we talk about something different?"
Mhm.
That's a really simple way to cut that off. It's gonna make them feel better because 'cause they're not reliving the drama that they wanna tell you about, and it's gonna make you feel
Yeah.
better for not engaging in that as well.
I like the wording of that. I don't have the bandwidth because I try to have a no complaining policy.
Yeah.
Um, 'Cause I just find like it's not helpful. So I like to have problem solving conversations
Yeah.
versus complaining. But yeah, that's a nice, like, gentle way to word it.
Yeah.
So, what is the most exciting element of, I guess, I can say the industry, but like what you're bringing to our workforce and our society?
I think the fact that we're open to talk about this because we can't keep going at the pace that we're going. And
Mhm.
when I started thinking about burnout 10 years ago, I was talking to another friend in the field, and we were like, wow, there's so few people who've been in the field as long as us. And then we were sort of looking around going, wait, what's wrong with us? That we were able to handle this diet of trauma for decades.
Yeah.
Um, but we also realize it's in every industry. And so the only way to make a change is to talk about it and to
Mhm.
normalize it and to say, look, we don't have to keep living in this crazy pace. It's not gonna make us the best employees. It's not gonna make the best outcomes for the businesses or the clients that we're working with. So being able to talk about it is just a gift, I think, and I'm gonna keep talking about it to anyone
Yeah.
who'll listen.
Yeah. Good. We all need it. And I thought about something else. Given you did spend so much time with helping victims of human trafficking, what do you want people to know or do or say, um, to make that like whole, I guess, system of trying to provide some help and like end human trafficking? Like, what can people that are not suited or going to play that role of being the assistant do? Like, is it having the conversation with someone who is? Is it thinking about something in a different way? I mean, it's a heavy topic. It is traumatic. Like, what should we be doing differently?
Well, one thing is, I think, just kindness, that recognizing that when you run into someone who may be acting poorly or behaving badly, you know, maybe see beyond their behavior to, I wonder what's causing them to do this. And, it
Mhm.
could be the trauma. So trauma is incredibly common, between sexual violence, sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse. It impacts people all
Mhm.
around you. And we just
Yeah.
haven't felt comfortable sharing or being kind and asking that. But related to human trafficking, I would also say just be aware that when you see someone who looks hurt, injured, beat up, something is off,
Mhm.
offer a helping hand or ask, just engage them in a little bit of conversation. Sometimes they just need someone who's looking at them non judgmentally for a moment, who
Mhm.
seems like a kind person, and then they'll be ready to ask for help. And also discourage the men in your life for paying for sex. I mean, we have to stop the demand to really make an impact, but we just have no conversations around that. So,
That is a very fair point. That's a great way to end it. You know, so take note, listeners. But yeah, I appreciate you saying that actually because it does get left out of the conversation so often. But I think there's burnout for so many different reasons. I think it's important to have that kind of well-rounded conversation on what's actually going on in the world, right? Like you're an amazing like, speaker giving us wonderful advice on burnout, and you're a forensic psychologist, but, you still have probably trauma, the secondhand trauma from trying to help those victims. So, if you if you think about everyone in your life, probably all people have some sort of trauma that they're dealing with or getting over. Like, statistically speaking, it's
yeah.
probably pretty grim. Um, I don't know the stat on that, but it's probably not great.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's higher than we realize, but that's a lot of our advances in neuroscience came from the recognition of adverse childhood experiences and how that impacts our aging and our health. So it's good that we're getting the medical community to do more screening and getting people to understand that intergenerational trauma and, childhood trauma has
Mhm.
lasting ripples in how we interact and how our health works. So we can together all talk about that a lot more.
Yeah. Is there a particular area of your study that you are looking forward to diving in more?
I think sleep is the most important medicine and the most important thing
Mm.
we can do to improve our physical health, emotional health, mental health.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited to learn a lot more about that. And it's something that I haven't perfected. I mean, I
Yeah.
have crazy brain as I'm trying to fall asleep and I wake up occasionally in the middle of the night. But
Mhm.
the science we're learning of what happens in our body and our brain while we're asleep is extraordinary. Like the fact that they've just discovered that our brains actually flush while we're in REM sleep because
Mm.
we don't have pumps that can move the unused neurotransmitters out of our brains. So they've just discovered that in REM sleep, you go in and out of fight or flight, or your body attention changes, and
Mhm.
that inflammation and is what actually moves the neurotransmitters through our brain, that activity. So
Oh,
there's so
interesting.
much to learn. It's really cool, but sleep is important. That's the
Yeah.
simple. I know I get really, like, nerdy on the science, but then I'm able to sort
Yeah.
of say, "Okay, we know sleep's important, but it's important because it's for
Yeah.
digestion and brain reset and, our healing." You just can't keep doing 3-hour nights of sleep and burning the candle at both ends. It's gonna come at a cost.
Yeah, that message is directly to me, right? I try to not sleep enough. I mean, hopefully, I think I'm actually having REM every night, but maybe not enough. So, fantastic reminder, and I will try to do that. Do you know if naps are sufficient? Like, let's say people don't, and I was just at a conference, and there was someone speaking about perimenopause and menopause and how you can get woken up in the night more easily. Can you try to mitigate that with naps, or is it really just like the extended sleep?
Naps help restore some of your functioning, so it works for some
Mm,
people, but if the naps are too long or too late, they can negatively impact your sleep. So it's
mhm.
going to depend on the individual, but what research has shown it's not actually the length of sleep that matters, it's the fact that you're in a usual routine. So if you're only
Ooh,
going to sleep 6 hours a night, make sure you always go to bed at the same time and get up at the
mhm.
same time because we fight our circadian rhythms by doing short nights and then trying to do a long night and then short nights. So it's the routine that's the most important part.
I did not know that. That is very helpful, and I also don't take naps, so that's that's good. At least I can try to stay consistent even if I have a shortened sleep cycle.
Mm.
Oh, well, that's very interesting. I don't mean to hammer you with all these sleep questions, but I think everyone really wants to know more about that area because we didn't maybe treat it seriously, or as seriously as we should.
Well, nobody can make money off of prescribing sleep, so it's just
Yeah.
not it's not studied until relatively it's just not been studied or promoted as much as it should. I mean, it's always been studied because we know sleep deprivation leads to long-term health consequences, and shift work is
Yeah.
particularly difficult, so a lot of the first
Yeah.
responders I'm working with struggle with that, so the
Mhm.
more you understand the science of what your body needs, the easier it is to prioritize it.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, you've given me a wealth of information. What would you like to leave the listeners with? What do you want them to start thinking about after they get off this podcast?
If you don't take a little bit of time to yourself and time off now, you're borrowing from your peaceful time in retirement at the end. It's
Mhm.
gonna make you more physically competent, more flexible in your thoughts. Taking breaks is just gonna recharge you, and it's critical. It's that self-care is healthcare.
Mm. That's, yeah, inconvenient for some, but it's true. Self-care is healthcare. That's great. And if the listeners want to either like hear you speak or continue a dialogue with you, how can they find you?
My website is simple. It's www.recharge.how, How, and they can go there and get more information on sleep for booking me as a speaker. They can also follow me on social media. My Instagram is dr.alexis.recharge. But if you put in Alexis Kennedy, I come up. So I just want to share as many tips as I can with people because I find the science interesting and I need that reminder to take care of myself still.
We all do. Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Kennedy. It's great speaking with you. And to all the listeners, thank you for being here. And remember to subscribe and like and review. Bye.
Thank you.